You are listening to the Why Smart Women podcast, the podcast that helps smart women work out why we repeatedly make the wrong decisions and how to make better ones. From relationships, career choices, finances, to faux fur jackets and kale smoothies. Every moment of every day, we're making decisions. Let's make them good ones. I'm your host, Annie McCubbin, and as a woman of a certain age, I've made my own share of really bad decisions. Not my husband. I don't mean him, though. I did go through some shockers to find him. And I wish this podcast had been around to save me from myself. This podcast will give you insights into the working of your own brain, which will blow your mind. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm recording and you are listening on this day. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. Well, hello, smart women. For the next 3 weeks, I'm going to be playing 3 chapters a week of my audiobook from Why Smart Women Make Bad Decisions and How Critical Thinking Can Protect Them. So if you find yourself listening in and you're up to chapter 4, by all means, wind it back, go back to chapter 1 because it's a narrative and it has a very strong narrative arc. Hope you enjoy it. See you on the other side. Bye. Chapter 8. Cat Pitches an Idea. You're at the roadshow. David Firth, the CEO, has just taken the stage. Last week, you were alone in the lift with him for 3 agonising floors. You tried to recall the elevator pitch you'd been encouraged to develop by a communications consultant, but you couldn't even remember the opening line. So you'd stood perfectly still, staring fixedly at the door, hoping he wouldn't notice you were there. He'd noticed.
So how are the numbers today? And more importantly, how are you?
To which you'd answered,
The numbers and me as well. Ah, well, thank you, Mr. Firth.
He'd said,
Great news. Call me David. And what's your name?
Cat Mitchell, sir.
Sir? Oh, God, you'd thought. What was wrong with you? You'd come over all Oliver Twist. You may as well have curtsied. He'd been immaculately turned out with a nod to Silicon Valley. Good looking with really good teeth. It's the same today. He's leaning languidly on the lectern while channeling the engagement style of Q&A's Hamish MacDonald.
Each one of you in this room,
He's saying,
is an ideas generator, an innovation ideator.
That's me, you think. I'm an ideas ideator. You weren't much of an ideas ideator, however, during the networking event prior to the roadshow. Who invented networking? What possible benefit was there to forcing people to stand in a room with a cup and saucer in one hand and a mini muffin in the other, talking to people they'd only ever nodded to over a desk divider? And also, what was the point of the saucer? How did it assist in managing the liquid in the cup? Saucers, you think, are a nod to a more genteel period. If you're utilising a saucer, you should be sitting in a drawing room with a lace collar, balancing the teacup atop the saucer while saying, Yes, Mr. Granger, I agree entirely the hedge is too high, not making use of the saucer as a final resting place for the muffin case. You'd stood to the side of the room wondering what to do about your sticky fingers when you'd noted Rosemary from HR, whom you knew fairly well, talking to 2 people unfamiliar to you. Breaking into a group is always agonising, and they were already deep in conversation, so you'd mentally tossed about a few opening statements, finally landing on,
Morning, everyone. You're doing better with the muffins than I am.
This opening statement proved to be a success, as the woman to the left of Rosemary had turned to you, offering you a wipe from her bag.
I won't need it,
She said,
No muffins for me. I've been gluten-free low carb for 13 days.
Do you know Odette from Risk?
said Rosemary.
She carries her entire life in her handbag.
As you were rubbing your hands with Odette's wipe, your phone had beeped in your pocket. It was Dan from Compliance, complaining that he couldn't hold your seat for much longer. So, now you were in the conference centre, 3 rows from the front, sitting next to Dan from Compliance, still clutching Odette's wipe. Behind the CEO, an opening video is being shown. A smiling Alice from customer service is delighting her customer by pointing to a graph on her computer.
Yeah, right.
Says Dan from Compliance.
Alice just lives every day for her customers.
You don't find Dan particularly compliant. He swivels and turns to the back of the room.
I hope there are some mini quiches left.
The video fades and the CEO resumes his presentation.
When I started in this company, I worked in the mailroom. I guess it would be called the email room now.
We all laugh dutifully. Dan from compliance snorts.
I was young but curious.
The CEO continues.
I worked my way up in this company by asking questions. Not just asking questions, but listening to the answers. The years passed and I kept asking questions.
He leans forward, dangles his hands over the front of the lectern.
One of our major operating principles was developed from a conversation I had with a junior marketer I ran into at the coffee shop on level 22.
He stands up straight, holds onto the sides of the lectern.
I say to each of you, don't sit on the sidelines and wait for permission.
He's morphing from Hamish MacDonald into an evangelical preacher.
Be the person who allows their thinking to expand outside the confines of what we already know.
He moves out from behind the lectern and jumps down into the audience, brandishing his handheld mic.
Be the person who tears up the rulebook and writes their own.
His voice rises to a fever pitch.
Be the person who believes in themselves.
His voice suddenly drops.
Be the person who has an idea and says, I'm taking this to David. Right now, here, today.
You wonder if he's married. The hipster was in his 30s, which was probably the problem, too young. The CEO is probably in his late 40s, likely divorced. Maybe ready for a second family. You'd be good at blended families. You could have children of your own and be quite comfortable ferrying your stepchildren to soccer and attending academic excellence awards nights. You're the sort of person who doesn't need to be genetically related to form attachment. Look at you and the cat. The CEO seems spent from his oratory. He moves slowly back up to the lectern and steeples his hands under his chin.
Now, employee wellness is a key plank in our talent engagement and retention strategy. We're running daily yoga classes and mindfulness training free for all employees. Do take advantage of these because, as we know, stress management is key to performance.
You'd like to tell him that yoga and mindfulness didn't improve the hipster's performance. Dan from compliance has been on Facebook this entire time. He turns to you, rolls his eyes.
Yeah, right. Downward facing frigging dog in my lunch break.
You're with Dan. The CEO continues.
Now, you have 2 weeks before the end of the financial year to get your ideas to me. And remember, small ideas can be game changers.
He pauses.
Tanya, stand up.
A rotund woman in a snake print dress stands at her chair, looks around the room and smiles warmly.
Tanya is my executive assistant. Now, I know she looks scary, but she actually doesn't bite.
We all laugh too hard.
So,
He concludes, seemingly looking directly at you.
if you have an idea, you come up to the 28th floor and say to her, I need to speak to David. She knows you're my priority. I know it's a cliché, but my door is always open.
Cut forward 4 days and you're standing in front of friendly Tanya's desk, which is like an island in the middle of the massive, virtually empty floor. You've been given permission by the CEO to circumvent the protocols. You're breathless with excitement. For too long you've been treading water with your life. There has to be more than Netflix and the cat. You hold a document in your hand. It details an amazing idea that's going to catapult your career and cement your reputation as an innovation exemplar. You'd mooted it before in a working group meeting, but it was too visionary for the troglodytes sitting around the table. But you know it's a winner and time is of the essence. One wall is a long window overlooking Sydney Harbour. 2 walls are the repository for a McCubbin, a Nolan and a Modern. The CEO himself must be secreted somewhere behind the 4th wall, though there's no discernible door. Tanya, in a leopard print dress, is tapping away at her computer. You'll probably win Australian Businesswoman of the Year. Then you can have your own busy executive assistant in a leopard print dress. You will have lost the 2.75 kilos, so you look great on the podium. The hipster will offer to give interviews to the newspapers. You'll tell the papers you've never heard of him before you forgive and marry him. Tanya is still tapping on her computer. You stand there looking avidly around the vast area as if your purpose is to take in the artwork. Eventually she looks up. She is not smiling warmly.
Yes?
Oh, hi.
You say, as if you're surprised by her presence. She looks at you. You gesture towards the window.
Great view. I'm Kat Mitchell.
She continues to look at you.
I was wondering if I could see David?
David Firth?
No. David of David and Goliath.
Yes, David Firth.
Do you have an appointment?
She knows you don't.
No, but I do have an idea.
An idea?
Yes, a proposal around data mining.
Right. Mr. Firth has back-to-back meetings.
The balloon of excitement in your chest begins to deflate.
Right.
You smile engagingly.
It wouldn't take up much of his time.
She pauses.
So Legal and Risk have signed off?
She knows they haven't.
Well, I thought I'd run it past him first.
Once you've been through Legal, Risk, Finance, and IT, get back to me and I'll endeavour to find you an appointment to see Mr. Firth.
You keep standing there. But Mr. Firth said you didn't bite and his door was always open, you want to say. She has gone back to her computer. You hold your position. You imagine yourself running past her, bursting into his office, handing him the document, him reading it while doing a one-buttock lean on his desk, then smiling up at you amazed and saying, "This has got legs." You look past Tanya at the walls. With no discernible door, there's just smooth, impenetrable wall as far as the eye can see. What if you ran towards what you thought was his office and were stuck there clawing at the wall? At that moment, Tanya catapults herself out of her chair, grabs some papers, and in a blur of leopard print sprints across the floor. She must utter some incantation as a portion of the wall opens and reveals the CEO inside. As she arrives at his desk, he stands up, reaches for the document Tanya's proffering, and answers his phone at the same time. Tanya virtually genuflects as she hands him the documents. He flicks through the documents while Tanya stands before him, her head down, her hands clasped in front of her like a schoolgirl caught smoking and sent to the headmaster's office. He finishes his flicking. He hangs up his phone, sits down and waves the document in Tanya's direction.
Tanya, this was meant to go out yesterday. That was the minister's office. You've been really disorganised lately. You're going to have to get your act together.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
She says.
But I did send this version to you yesterday, and you said you wanted to check it before I forwarded it to the minister.
She starts wringing her hands.
You're blaming me?
He says, rising.
No, not at all. I'm sorry, I just...
I've just had the minister's chief of staff talking to me in a very terse manner.
He says.
Where's your discretionary energy in these matters? It's one of our cultural characteristics.
She turns towards the door. You can see her face. It's a picture of misery and apology. This is maybe not the time to push your ideas ideator concept. The door that's always open is now slowly shutting.
Okay, well, thanks, Tanya.
You call out into the dwindling gap.
I'll just get this innovative ideation idea signed off. I'll start with legal and I'll be back really soon.
You're waving like you're on a train station and Tanya and the CEO are off on a holiday to Brighton. You scurry to the lift, get in and push the button for Legal's floor. Craig from Legal is sitting at his desk drinking a coffee. He's wearing heavy-rimmed black glasses, making him look like he's wandered out of the optometrist mid-eye exam. You explain to him that you need someone to look over the document for you.
Okay.
Says Craig.
What is it?
It's an idea around data mining. I'm hauling it around to get costings.
Leafing through the document, he looks up at you.
Okay, you're working with Quinn?
Quinn?
You say.
Yeah, Quinn O'Reilly from Risk.
No, why?
You ask.
Well, he ran this past Anthony yesterday.
Your scalp begins to prickle with sweat. You remember back to the meeting when you'd presented the idea. There, sitting opposite you was the loathsome Quinn O'Reilly, staring off into the distance. He'd voted it down, the filthy idea stealer.
You'll find there are variations.
He's still flicking through it.
No, it seems pretty much the same.
Okay.
You say.
Well, I'm going to need sign-off. Quinn and I aren't working on this together.
Oh, okay.
Says Craig.
Well, does Quinn know you're hawking his idea around?
Your scalp tightens and the beginnings of a headache tug at your temples. You want to kick him.
It's actually my idea and I need to get sign-off.
It's going to be tricky getting into Anthony's diary.
Well, I see Quinn got into Anthony's diary.
Well, you know Quinn.
He says.
He knows everyone.
You do know Quinn. He sits like a giant gecko conducting his meetings in the cafe downstairs, trapping acquaintances with his long tongue as they pass. He's the king of syndicating. You can hear his thick Irish brogue cannoning across the foyer. Australians are a complete sucker for a Celtic cliché. You've actually heard him say,
Top of the morning to you.
Craig,
you say,
I would really appreciate the opportunity to get into Anthony's diary really, really soon.
I'll do what I can,
says Craig.
but he's only got so many hours in the day.
You've got sweat dripping down the back of your neck. The biggest opportunity of your lifetime is going to be swiped from underneath your nose. The Businesswoman of the Year and podium are rapidly receding. The loathsome Irish gecko is going to get there first. Opportunist. You put both hands on Craig's desk and lean across in a menacing manner.
I'll be back this afternoon, Craig. I expect to be able to have a meeting with Anthony.
You walk away from his desk without looking back. This is difficult as the lift is taking a long time and his desk is right near it. Still, you stare resolutely ahead. You feel a soft tug on your arm. You turn. It's Craig.
Your mum texted. Pip is getting married.
He says, handing you your phone which you'd left on his desk. That'd be right. Every single female in your family is choosing this year to get married. Pip is marrying a hedge fund broker at 26. The wedding will probably be in New Zealand. You'll be expected to fork out for the plane fare, share a room at the Hilton with your parents, and contribute to solid silver candlesticks, selected from the David Jones wedding register. When you marry, you'll insist on getting married in someone's garden and no gifts, unless anybody is attached to giving you 1,000 thread count Egyptian cotton sheets. Simple off-white is fine. The cat can be the ring bearer. You can attach the ring to her collar. This could be awkward if the hipster is not the groom, but the cat is nothing if not adaptable. The lift doors open and there stands Quinn, talking animatedly to Anthony. You step into the lift. Here's your moment, Cat. You're in an elevator. Use your elevator pitch to reclaim your idea and get Anthony to sign it off. You've probably only got 3 floors, but Quinn's arm is holding the door. He acknowledges you with a friendly smile as Anthony steps around you.
But that sounds terrific, Quinn. So, tee off at, say, 7:30?
Says Anthony. Why didn't you take up golf, Cat? Executives play golf. Anthony's not going to be interested in hopping on the Pilates reformer at 7:30 a.m. And they're out of the lift. You watch their retreating backs as the doors close. In a welter of indecision, you call out,
Excuse me, Anthony.
but they've gone. The CEO had inferred that pitching an idea to him was a matter of wandering up to the 35th floor with your document where Tanya, his friendly executive assistant, would facilitate your easy access into his office. In your imaginings, after she'd seen you comfortably seated at his desk, she'd say, Miss Mitchell, can I get you a coffee or a juice? When you declined, she'd smilingly left the office, closing the door behind her so you and the CEO could discuss your brilliant idea in a mature, considered manner. So far, the process has been like being in a non-English-speaking country and finding your passport has expired 10 minutes before you get on your flight. You lean against the mirrored wall of the lift and punch the floor number for risk with the toe of your shoe. The lift doors open to reveal Odette from the networking session from last week. She's sitting at her desk working at a mindfulness colouring book.
Hey, Odette. How are you?
She looks up briefly.
Good, thanks.
It's me, Kat. I met you at last week's networking session. You kindly gave me a wipe.
Oh, yeah.
She smiles up at you.
I'm still gluten-free low carb. 17 days.
You return the smile.
Wow, well done. Well, can you run an eye over this proposal? I need sign-off ASAP.
Her smile fades.
I'm actually on a break, Kat.
So much for the relationship building at the network session. She's busily colouring a Labrador puppy blue. She sees you looking at it.
I let my imagination go. It's healthy and stress-reducing.
Right.
You say like she's 7.
It looks great. So, when you finished your break, can you run an eye over this?
No can do. I'm in Jenny's role. She's gone on mat leave. You know she's been trying IVF for 9 years, then stopped it and fell pregnant within a year. How's that?
You don't know Jenny, and discussions of pregnancies make you feel inadequate.
Amazing.
You say.
So who's in your role?
Helen.
You hand her the proposal.
Could you have Helen run an eye over this, please?
She flicks through it.
Oh, right. No need. Helen signed off on this yesterday. For Quinn.
Your stomach lurches.
When did she receive it?
Yesterday.
She received it and signed off on the same day? That's some turnaround.
You say.
Yeah, all good.
She says. She turns her attention to the puppy's ears.
Anyway, it's not the same proposal. I need to talk to Helen.
She calls over her shoulder across the desks.
Hey, Tamsin, where's Helen?
Not here, calls Tamsin.
When will she be back?
You call to Tamsin. Hang on, she replies. I'll check with Hamish. Tamsin picks up the phone. Hamish, she says. Where's Helen? There is a pause. Oh, right. Oh, no, yeah, no. She puts her hand over the phone. He says Helen's off today. Her dog died. Odette pauses her colouring in.
Oh, that's so sad.
She says.
I love dogs.
Quinn will be returning triumphant to the CEO's office, having got sign-off, while you stand here dealing with dead dogs and Odette and her colouring in book. Tamsin continues. We lost Barry a year ago. It's like it was yesterday. Why have people adopted the habit of calling dogs by human names, like Dave? The next door neighbour's Spoodle is called Howard. She's forever berating it. Howard, sit, the neighbour commands. I won't tell you again. Except she does, constantly. Howard always has a look of defeat, though it could be the way his eyebrows are groomed. You're halfway through elevating your right cheek and furrowing your brow as your face assumes the I'm sorry your dog died expression when you lose confidence. What if Barry is not a dog? You can't ask when Helen is due back. If Barry is a human, it looks insensitive. Tamsin continues. Yep, we adopted Ken last month. He's a handful. Your brain does a quick calculation. Tamsin looks 50, too old to be adopting a child. They told me he'd have a mind of his own, she continues. But boy, he's a real tearaway. Maybe she's adopted a teenager. He urinated on the carpet last night. I had to speak to him firmly. Ken could be a drunk teenager unable to navigate his way to the bathroom. We found him 2 hours later hiding under the house chewing on an old lamb shank, says Tamsin. Okay. Unless Ken has some serious issues, he's probably not a teenager.
I have a cat.
You say pointlessly. Do you? I'm allergic to cats, says Tamsin. Oh, God. Now you've started a new thread of conversation.
Anyway, would you be able to check on Helen?
You say. Of course, she says, stretching her fingers like a safecracker. I will now check with Hamish when she'll be back. She punches some numbers in. Hey, Hamish, when will Helen be back? She puts her hand over the phone. Right, they don't know when Helen will be back. Could be this week, could be next. But Karen's handling her work and Karen's on a 3-day development program. A deep red flush flares across your face. The headache, liberated by the spike in blood pressure, detonates across your head. You lean over, grab the picture of the Labrador and tear it in half.
Grown-up colouring in is stupid.
You hiss. Odette's eyes widen. You slam your hands on the desk and yell.
I have to get this signed off today or tomorrow at the latest. I'm sorry everybody's away and pregnant and their dogs have died, but I have an idea and I don't play golf or live in the cafe, so I need this signed off.
Tamsin puts down the receiver and stares at you. The whole floor has gone quiet. You're holding your breath. The whole floor is holding its breath. Odette picks up the colouring book, leans across the desk and offers it to you. You exhale. Take the book from her hand, lower yourself into the chair.
Sorry.
She shrugs, smiles.
I'm practicing non-attachment.
You open the colouring book at a rabbit, pick up a pencil and begin colouring in the carrot blue. You understand the appeal of staying in the lines. You look up at the office. Everyone's gone back to their work. The moment's over. Of course it is. The wake you leave behind you is shallow. You barely make a ripple. Even your capacity to create a drama is tepid. You're invisible, an afterthought. Not even the cat takes you seriously. You colour in the top of the carrot pink. Maybe you should get a dog. Not a pathetic beagle, but an enormous Great Dane like Bethany's. Then you can haunt local cafes and have it sit majestically next to you while you guide small children's hands to pat its massive head. What are you thinking? The cat would never allow a canine presence in the house. You slump in your chair. Your throat is sore from yelling, your headache retreats to a nauseating thump. Odette is still smiling at you. Maybe she thinks you're unstable and is trying to calm you like a skittish horse. What are you doing sitting here? You don't need a Great Dane. You need to get a grip on yourself. You close the book, hand it back to Odette.
I've started on the carrot.
You say. She looks at your efforts, nods approvingly. You straighten your back with an effort. Right, Cat, get a grip on yourself. If not now, when? If not you, who? It's time to go from doormat to diva. These internet inspirational sayings must have lodged themselves somehow in your consciousness as your inner voice sounds like Oprah. Anyway, maybe the internet has a point. You look at your phone sitting at your elbow. You pick it up, search the calendar for the next networking session. Tick attending. Quinn O'Reilly wouldn't miss a networking session if his life depended on it, and from now on, neither will you. You dial a number.
Hey, Quinn. Top of the morning to you.
You say.
It's Kat Mitchell. Like to have a coffee to talk about partnering on my data mining idea?
The thing with power. Where does it come from, and how do you get it? So there's a theory that primates, us and our monkey cousins, have great big brains because we live in great big complex social groups. But our great big brains sometimes struggle to negotiate their way around these social mazes. Kat, in an effort to elevate her career, is trying to navigate her way around her corporate social group but is hitting some difficulties. So, how can she negotiate her way around the business of getting what she wants and what's currently getting in the way? A bit of interesting stuff about status. During my acting career, I was very interested in the work of Keith Johnson, who wrote a book called Impro. My favourite chapter was one on status. This chapter described the power dynamic that informs much of the communication between people. When rehearsing for a play or a film, many actors, myself included, would explore the ebb and flow of power that pulses underneath the drama. An actor can drill into the psychology of the character and discern whether the character is A, aware of what's driving them in response to the ever-present power dynamic in the scene, or B, unaware, in which case they're being driven subconsciously. Later in my life, when I went into communication consulting, I worked out that the status principles that Johnson had described in his book were as useful in real life as they were in the theatre. So, back to Kat's drama. There was clearly a power play between Kat and Tanya, the executive assistant, in that Kat's efforts to meet with the CEO were stymied by Tanya in full gatekeeper mode. If an actor were playing the character of Kat in this scene, she would determine that Kat knew she wasn't winning the battle of wills, but was unclear exactly why. This is a common experience. Sometimes we're consciously aware of the power dynamic present in an interaction with another person, and sometimes we're not. However, the tribal part of our brain is aware of and reacting to barely detectable social signals constantly, signals that our conscious brain is not picking up. Signals about power. Our brains are picking up signals to do with power all the time. Whether we like it or not, power is part of being human, and human beings operate on a very subtle level in relation to power. Whether we like it or not, power is part of being human, and human beings operate on a very subtle level in relation to power. On a subconscious level, we notice who has the power, who's fighting for it, and who's happy to relinquish it. Think in terms of high and low status. In certain contexts, we hold power, and in other contexts, we don't. Sometimes we need to be operating out of a high-status place. Sometimes we need to be operating out of a low-status place. What is high status? High status involves being assertive and firm and having control or authority. It can also involve being condescending, aggressive, domineering, and superior. Being high status is neither a good nor a bad thing. As with everything, it depends what's driving the behaviour. Being high status simply means you desire to control your current situation. In the interaction between Kat and Tanya, Tanya was operating from a place of high status. What is low status? Low status involves joy, approachability, empathy, flexibility, and friendliness. It can also involve being timid, submissive, apprehensive, and overly compliant. Low status, in and of itself, is neither a negative nor a positive thing. It simply means you respond to the situation rather than being in control of it. In the interaction between Kat and Tanya, Kat was operating from a place of low status. Why is it relevant? Well, it's relevant because our subconscious responses to power drive a lot of our behaviour. As an actor, being aware of this dynamic meant it would form part of my investigation into the background of a character. I would interrogate the script to try and determine what events in the character's life would have influenced the status with which they meet the world. Characters in plays or films are like us, a combination of personality, background, and current circumstances. Most actors know that a character's status bias will affect their physicality, the way they walk and talk, their physical mannerisms and attributes, as well as influencing the other characters on conscious and subconscious levels. The script itself also informs the actor of the sort of language the character uses. Some characters can be described as being low status, others are high status. This doesn't mean the character has to stay in low or high status mode all the time. It just means it's the character's bias. Characters will often surprise the audience by going against type and behaving differently. Think in terms of the mouse that roared, the submissive person finding their mettle, or the king who falls on hard times and has to ask a peasant for food. This again is like us as everyday humans. How often have you done something totally surprising to yourself? You might even say, "I cannot believe I did that. That is so out of character." This is because the circumstances you were in affected you so strongly that you were pushed out of your normal status bias. An example of this is Kat yelling in the office at the end of the chapter. She became so frustrated it pushed her out of her usual low status bias. However, her reaction wasn't particularly effective. If we can be in control of our status position, we're more likely to achieve the outcome we're after. So, back to my process as an actor. Between the script itself and my interpretation of it, I would come up with a character which was full, rich, and hopefully believable. A character reacting to the world around her. A character responding to the swirl of power dynamics in the world she inhabited. This again mirrors us in everyday life. We develop a way of moving, speaking, and interacting in the world, which is a combination of our personality, history, and current circumstances. Some of our characteristics and habits might work for us well, while others may not. So it's good to examine these physical and verbal habits and see what messages we're tacitly giving to the people with whom we live, work, and interact on a daily basis. People will have confidence in you, or they won't, but if you ask them why, they'd probably be unable to explain. Our feelings are important, however, they should not be allowed free rein to drive our behaviour. However, there is an explanation. In an evolutionary sense, the limbic system in the brain, which reacts to the power dynamic in groups, back in Miriam's day when they were roaming the savannah, is alive and well today. As soon as it detects a threat, we're triggered into a reaction. Sometimes we're triggered into a high-status reaction, and other times a low-status reaction. Two different people in the same set of circumstances could have different status reactions. In the face of an aggressive person, one individual could be triggered into a high-status reaction and become aggressive or authoritarian in return, while another person could be triggered into a low-status reaction and become reticent, withdrawn, or apologetic. Kat had a low-status reaction in the face of Tanya's high-status response to her request to see the CEO. No threat here, says Tanya's brain, which is experiencing itself as high status in response to Kat's uncertain and apologetic behaviour. Context changes everything. So, in the interaction between Kat and Tanya, Tanya was high status because as the gatekeeper for the CEO, she wields a lot of power over who has access to him and who doesn't. In Tanya's interaction with the CEO, however, she was highly responsive and apologetic. This is because the power dynamic shifted. The CEO was high status and Tanya was low status. Much of our relationship with power shifts from context to context. You might be predominantly high status with your partner, but low status with the butcher, high status with the person who makes your coffee, and low status with one of your direct managers. Sometimes the hierarchy will dictate the status dynamic, and sometimes personalities can circumvent positional status. Lisa Miles is below Kat in the pecking order, but Kat feels intimidated by her. So Lisa is high status in the relationship and Kat is low status. In healthy relationships, the status dynamic moves fluidly from one person to the other and back again. However, most of us have a bias. You might have a high status bias. If you have a high status bias, being in control might be very important to you. You might find that there are many situations and contexts in which you feel your authority is being threatened, and it's important you assert yourself. If you're having a high status reaction, regardless of whether it's appropriate or not, it will feel right. If your limbic system experiences itself as being under threat and you have a high status bias, your frontal lobe will post-rationalize the emotional response with thoughts along these lines. Nobody pushes me around. I know how to do my job. I don't need to be told. We've been doing it like this for 25 years. The proposed changes are stupid. I know everyone's been delayed, but I need to get on the next flight. I should be prioritised. I won't be taken advantage of. Who are you to tell me what to do? You've cut into my lane and I'm going to have to drive you off the road. You might have a low status bias. If you have a low status bias, being no trouble, keeping the peace and being liked may be very important to you. You might find that there are many situations and contexts in which you feel you have to make way for other people. You're constantly prioritising other people's needs before your own. You might feel easily intimidated and unable to hold a boundary. If you're having a low status reaction, regardless of whether it's appropriate or not, it will feel right. If your limbic system has experienced itself as being under threat and you have a low status bias, your frontal lobe will post-rationalise the emotional response with thoughts along these lines. I'm not going to get involved in this drama, there's no point. I don't want to be any trouble. Nobody listens to me anyway. If I say that, I won't be liked. It's my fault. I probably made him angry in the first place. Remember fight, flight, freeze. If you don't recognise that you're in the grip of a limbic system response, you're likely to allow your status preference to drive your response. Unless you unyoke yourself from this emotional response, critical thinking is impossible. The first step is to recognise it's happening. In the interaction with Tanya, Kat's brain reacted to stimuli and interpreted that she was in danger. The amygdala, the part of the limbic system that responds to fear, picked up a signal and released the same cascade of chemicals as in Chapter 5 when she was having to jump into the skipping rope and speak at a meeting. This time, as she faced off an unfriendly executive assistant, the fight-flight-freeze response meant her brain couldn't tell the difference between a lion coming at her and the unfriendly look on Tanya's face. Depending on how threatened Kat felt during the interaction, she may have experienced the full set of physiological responses she's experienced before. Racing heart, sweaty palm, sweaty scalp, actually, sweaty everything, plus butterflies in the stomach and dry mouth. Both signs that her brain is shutting down her digestive system to prepare her for fight, flight, or freeze. Or she may have only experienced a couple of these responses, such as her heart beating faster or losing clarity of thought. Whether it's the whole box and dice or just a hint of the limbic system response, she needs to be aware of it. Being aware of it is the precursor to managing it. Again, if you're wondering how to manage the fight, flight, freeze response, revisit Chapter 5 and the Tame the Dragon approach. It's not foolproof, but it's a really good start to regaining control. Responding is different to reacting. Reacting is when you allow your limbic system to dictate the status position you will hold in response to a stimulus. Responding is the positive use of high and low status to get the outcome that you want. People who can utilise high and low status and move fluidly between the two as the circumstances requires are excellent communicators. How Kat could have better managed Tanya. How could Kat, who has a low status bias, have held her ground and achieved a better outcome with Tanya? First, she could have recognised that Tanya's response had thrown her and applied Tame the Dragon. Next, she could have taken on the persona of her furry friend. Cats are high status, so mimicking their traits will give you the appearance of high status. Cats are high status. Consider the demeanour of a cat. If you're wanting to appear to be high status, you could be as still as possible. Like cats, people with a high status bias do not expend energy moving around. They are contained physically. Don't jiggle around like a Labrador at a barbecue. Be direct and spare with language. State the question, answer or statement directly and use fewer words. Don't endlessly reframe the question and babble on like a 5-year-old at a birthday party. Embrace the pause. Once you've communicated your question, answer or statement, zip up and sit in the silence, no matter how much you want to fill the void with chat. Use direct eye gaze. Think of the way a cat looks at you. Don't stare like you're auditioning for a zombie film, though note that flickering eye movements are also a sign of submission. Take up more space. A cat will lounge wherever it wants. It is uninterested in whether you wanted access to the keyboard. People with a high status bias are more likely to be expansive with their physicality. Think of a cat, still, direct, imperious. If Kat had channeled cat, the emotional part of Tanya's brain might have reacted differently. She might have taken Kat more seriously and not automatically assumed that the person on the opposite side of her desk was lower on the pecking order. Kat could have remained polite and pleasant, but still looked like she meant business. Now, if you've worked out that you have a high status bias, you may have recognised that elements of it can contribute to conflict in your life. The first thing to do is recognise you've been triggered into a high status response and apply Tame the Dragon. Labradors are low status. Consider the demeanour of a Labrador. You could. Think of a Labrador. Approachable, friendly, a lot of tail wagging, non-threatening, joyful. Labradors are not pictures of stillness and restraint, and neither should you be. Low status is physically more flexible than high status. Move more. Ask questions. Show curiosity about the other person. Allow someone else to dominate the conversation. If you find yourself reinserting yourself into the conversation and talking about something you're expert in, stamp on your own foot and go back to being curious about the other person. Avoid long, sustained pauses between your statements. Take up less space physically. Avoid physical positions like leaning back with your hands linked behind your head or splaying your legs with your hands on your hips. Be more responsive and flexible to other people's ideas. For example, agree to go to a restaurant someone else recommended. Listen to explanations offered before giving your reply. Listen to understand instead of listening to reply. Go back to the idea of Labradors. Labradors are the epitome of using low status to get what they want. They are not aggressive or intimidating, rather the message is, I'm adorable but relentless. Avoid being too direct with your eyes. Imagine a Labrador at the dog park being confronted by a Staffordshire Bull Terrier. He would roll on his back and avoid direct eye gaze. If you're going for this, go for the averted eye gaze, but avoid rolling onto your back. It could send the wrong message in a team meeting. A final word on status. It's easy to get caught up in the negative elements of high and low status. Yes, the downside of high status means a person can be arrogant and domineering, but they can also be compassionate, decisive, and inspiring. Yes, the downside of low status means a person can be submissive, timid, and indecisive, but they can also be flexible, empathetic, and joyful. The aim is to have control over the status position you take, rather than letting your limbic system choose for you. The consistency bias. Humans are susceptible to consistency bias. Once we've agreed to something, we're less likely to renege on it. It's why salespeople try to get you to agree that you like whatever you're looking at. You're more likely to buy it. If Kat had managed to get Tanya to agree to securing her an appointment with the CEO even in the future, Tanya would have felt more compelled to keep the agreement. The same situation arose with Craig from legal. If Kat hadn't lost ground and become so defensive about Quinn the Irish gecko, she could have been more direct in her request. As usual, some confirmation bias. Of course, it's debatable whether Kat's perception of Quinn's character is accurate. She's in the grip of confirmation bias, cherry-picking available data to confirm what she already thinks of him. By the time she's arrived onto the risk floor and encountered Odette, she has gone so far down the rabbit hole of confirmation bias, interpreting everything as being against her, she has little chance of regaining ground. Networking events. Networking events. Relatively few people actually like them. The reason is that networking events have all the elements likely to set off our fear responses and make us highly reactive to the power dynamics thrumming underneath polite conversations. Your tribal brain is on high alert as to whether you fit in or not. That is what's behind the gut-churning experience when you're standing in a networking event which you've been compelled to attend and you have to break into that already established small conversation group. Not only do you have to talk to people you don't know, but horror of horrors, you have to sell yourself and your team or organisation. Under such circumstances, your limbic system is under the strong impression that you are not safe, that you won't know what to say, that you'll be rejected. And rejection to the primitive part of your brain is not just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. Hence the disproportionate fear of joining an already established tribe, even if that tribe has only been established for 5 minutes. To your brain, a group of people already has an exclusive feel to it, no matter how long it's been formed. So next time you're at a networking event and you recognise you've been triggered into a limbic system response, apply Tame the Dragon, then walk on over to that group. Don't put the pressure on yourself to be witty and erudite. It's perfectly reasonable to move into the group and say, "Mind if I join you?" Then just listen. If you're not in a panic about trying to impress people, you're more likely to make a genuine contribution to the discussion. Argument from authority. So what started this whole cascade of events in Kat's life? The CEO's speech. The CEO was in charismatic high-status mode, which automatically fires off the human brain's tendency to fall for argument from authority. We evolved to form groups and follow the person standing in front of the campfire weaving a compelling story. Argument from authority is so powerful that, in the face of a charismatic individual, many people will literally suspend their critical thinking. Charismatic people combine high and low status and have a natural ability to tell stories. We are configured to listen to stories. In Sapiens, Yuval Noah Harari makes a strong case that it is our capacity to fall in behind a narrative that has distinguished us and allowed us dominion over our planet. Narratives spooked by politicians prove that, regardless of the veracity of their claims, a large proportion of humans have a strong tendency to believe them. People are constantly amazed at how easy it is to convince others of things that are patently untrue. We shouldn't be surprised. Belief comes first, reason comes second. Primary attribution error. The CEO is guilty of primary attribution error. This is the tendency to attribute personality flaws or character failings to other people's behaviours or mistakes, rather than entertaining the possibility that the situation or environment may be influencing them. At the same time, in our minds, our behaviour or mistakes are not due to any personality flaw or character failing. Rather, they're a result of the situation we are in or other external influences. In the CEO's mind, Tanya was at fault because she's disorganised and incapable of exercising discretionary energy, a fundamental character flaw. His mistake, however, that he told Tanya that he wanted to read the document before it was sent, then didn't tell her he changed his mind, was due to the prevailing circumstances, in that he was busy. This bias arises because we intimately know our own circumstances and how they're affecting our capacity to operate, whereas we are blind to other people's circumstances. If you start looking for this error in your thinking, you'll find it operating in all contexts of your life. We are much more forgiving of ourselves than of other people. Be careful of the narrative. Be careful of the narrative you tell as a business. that narrative needs to be supported by reality. Someone like Kat probably has a blind spot around charming, charismatic men. She reflexively trusts the CEO, is optimistically caught up in his vision, and is then disillusioned by the realities of the system. She discovers that the labyrinth machinations of the bureaucracy involved do not support the idealistic notion of an organic approach to innovation. Uncompliant Dan's attitude is emblematic of the cultural backlash that occurs when employees become weary of ideas disconnected from the reality of business practice. Speaking of disconnected ideas, what exactly does wellness mean? There's been an enthusiastic adoption of wellness and stress reduction programs by many big companies, but does their research live up to the hype? It's too early to say, but it's important that stress reduction initiatives aren't rolled out in the hope they'll ameliorate unrealistic demands being placed on employees. If a business is going to implement wellness initiatives, then ensuring the research is solid before they do so is a really good start. And remember that just because something is Eastern or traditional or natural doesn't mean it's good. As we saw in Chapter 4 when Kat was caught up in clean eating ideas, the positive connotations of words like wellness make it easy for businesses to adopt them without applying the requisite scrutiny. Words like wellness and natural fall into the sphere of the halo effect and should be treated with skepticism. Getting smarter. Power dynamics are playing out all the time. If we want to use critical thinking to get the best possible outcome from each encounter we have, we need to manage our emotional reactions first. We are very prone to going with and trusting our instinctive response, whatever we feel feels right. In the highly dynamic world of power, however, questioning and having choice over our status position can mean getting the job, asking for the raise, making the request, holding our own in a meeting, or sending back the cold meal or the cold partner. We're very habituated to our status preferences, but that doesn't mean it's impossible to get a handle on what sends us careening into a status reaction. Learning the signs means we'll have a lot less drama and a lot more success. Basically, we'll spend a lot less time mentally slapping ourselves because things went badly and we know it had something to do with us. We just can't for the life of us work out what. Get your thoughts straight. Labrador or cat? We all have a status bias. Now that you've read this chapter, you should have some idea of which context sends you into either Labrador or cat mode. Work out what your tendency is and be vigilant when you sense it taking over your response when you're under stress. If you notice you've been sent to either status position, use the tame the dragon technique, then use the physical and verbal approaches I mentioned in this chapter. Pick your battles. That said, if it's not a big deal, maybe don't get involved in a status battle. Do you really want that dress? Be aware of salespeople getting you to agree that you like the dress, the phone, the shoes, or whatever it is that you're contemplating buying. Consistency bias means you'll probably feel compelled to buy it once you've agreed you like it. Aesop's advantage. Stories are incredibly powerful. If you happen to be giving a presentation, throw in a story. They're way more influential than plain facts. End of Chapter 8. Thanks for tuning into Why Smart Women with me, Annie McCubbin. I hope today's episode has ignited your curiosity and left you feeling inspired by my anti-motivational style. Join me next time as we continue to unravel the fascinating layers of our brains and develop ways to sort out the fact from the fiction and the over 6,000 thoughts we have in the course of every day. Remember, intelligence isn't enough. You can be as smart as paint, but it's not just about what you know, it's about how you think. And in all this talk of whether or not you can trust your gut, if you ever feel unsafe, whether it's in the street, at work, car park, in a bar, or in your own home, please respect that gut feeling. Staying safe needs to be our primary objective. We can build better lives, but we have to stay safe to do that. And don't forget to subscribe, rate and review the podcast and share it with your fellow smart women and allies. Together we're hopefully reshaping the narrative around women and making better decisions. So until next time, stay sharp, stay savvy, and keep your critical thinking hat shiny. This is Annie McCubbin signing off from Why Smart Women. See you later. This episode was produced by Harrison Hess. It was executive produced and written by me, Annie McCubbin.